Welcome, everyone. Thanks for coming today. We'll get started shortly, but as we're waiting, if you want to drop in the chat where you're coming from, your farm, organization, or association, that'd be great. Yeah, we'll get started shortly. Okay, it looks like the trickle of folks has slowed down a bit, so we'll go ahead and get started. Yeah, my name is Noah Irwin. I'm on the policy team at PASA. Thanks for joining us today as we have Mike Roth from the PDA here to talk about their Ag Innovation Grant. As it says on the screen, feel free to drop your questions in the chat. Also, you can use the Q&A feature if you'd prefer that. Sometimes it's down at the bottom of Zoom. You might have to hit that More button with those three dots to find it. So yeah, put your questions in either place throughout the presentation as they come up. We'll do questions at the end, but just you can put your questions in the chat as they come about, and we'll get them answered at some point. Yeah, please do let us know what you think about the event. We send out an evaluation link. We really try to take into consideration feedback we would get from folks, but we're only able to do that if you share what works and what doesn't work. So please do let us know. So I said, yeah, we've got Mike Roth today here to talk about PDA's Ag Innovation Grant and talk through what the grant program looks like, what it entails, and then also to answer any questions you might have about applying for it. Thank you for coming, everyone. So here at PASA, Sustainable Agriculture, we are, as you see on the screen, our mission is to cultivate environmentally sound, economically viable, community-focused farms and food systems. And our vision is one where a world that agriculture nourishes, heals, and empowers everyone who participates. And also want to make sure we are recording the webinar because this is a great resource we want to provide to folks who weren't able to make it. So just, yeah, FYI that we are recording as you're participating today. And with that, I'll turn it over to Mike Roth for his presentation about the Ag Innovation Grant. Mike, really appreciate you coming today and sharing your knowledge with our network. So we'll pass it to you.
Yeah, thanks Noah. Thanks to PASA for allowing us to share this grant opportunity with you all, and for the action shot that you had up there. That's appreciated. But great to be with you all today. I'm going to go through the walkthrough of our Ag Innovation Grant. But just quickly, for those that don't know me, my name is Mike Roth. I'm the Director of Innovation at the PA Department of Ag and the State Conservation Commission. And my work kind of crosses a lot of different sectors, everything from sustainable building materials to robotics, AI, different technology, and of course, through this program, leading the Ag Innovation Grant Program. So I'm going to turn off my video just to save some bandwidth. I'm sure many others are experiencing some significantly bad weather today, so I'm just going to take out a variable here, and I will go ahead and share my screen. Yeah, so just quickly, in case for whatever reason I would get disconnected or anything, I always welcome folks. Please feel free to email me, call, text this number you see here if you have any additional questions, or we need to chat offline. And I will note this document that we're viewing right now is the resource guide. It is available on the Department of Ag website. So if you look up PA Ag Innovation Grant, there's a landing page. This is on the right-hand side, and again, called the resource guide. So just a quick overview here. Why ag innovation? This is a unique opportunity for the Commonwealth to invest in all commodities, no matter what location of the state you're in. So this is truly open to everyone and everything as it regards to agriculture commodities in the Commonwealth. And the hope is that these investments can help future-proof our operations and farms so they can continue farming into the future. So as far as eligibility, we're looking for people who grow agricultural commodities, process agricultural commodities, or those that serve in a technical assistance role to those that produce or process agriculture commodities here in the Commonwealth. Below is just a quick checklist that, again, you can check on later. to make sure that you're okay with the different aspects of this grant program. So you may say, and many folks have asked, well, what do you mean by innovation? We're leaving innovation to be a very broad term because the innovation for, a couple thousand cow dairy is going to be a lot different than the innovation of a very small dairy operation. So in order to create some sort of pathway in um, sort of bumpers along this to get you in the right direction. We have 8 priority areas that we've identified that would be obviously the focus of what we're looking to invest in. So these range from everything from improvements in energy efficiency and utility efficiency, all the way down to things like biosecurity and cybersecurity. But again, at the end of the day, the way to think about it is there should be some way to report back on efficiencies or improvements on your operation through the investment of the equipment that you're looking to purchase. As far as the innovations that you're looking to deploy, we do have 5 principles for innovation that the department is uh, sort of focusing in on. So we want to make sure that the innovation is relevant, it's practical, it's accessible, scalable, and most importantly, it improves the triple bottom line. So is it benefiting people, planet, and profit? And again, we're just using these to make sure that the innovation is uh, in line with what we're hoping to see in the future of Pennsylvania and make sure that it doesn't have any sort of negative effects on the Commonwealth or even the agricultural operation itself. So we have 3 different flavors of grants, if you will, for this Ag Innovation Grant opportunity. The smallest is the planning grant. So let's say that you're aware of innovative technology or piece of equipment, but you're not ready to jump fully in. You want to better understand how it would work within your current operation or current setup. The planning grant is a great opportunity to pay for third-party services to help you evaluate. Does this make sense for my operation? Uh, you know, how can I make the best use of this new equipment or technology and make sure I'm getting the ROI that I'm hoping for? So the planning grant is a fairly light lift, so it's uh, up to $50,000 is eligible, and then there's a match of 30%. I want to be clear, whenever I'm talking about the matches for these grants, it's not the total project cost, it's what you ask from us. So in this case, if you ask for the full 50,000, you're only going to have to match that with an additional 30% of 50,000. And I'll make this a little clearer in some future slides. The on-site grant is the second type of grant. This is probably the most popular. This is if you're an individual farm making an improvement just on your own farm that really only impacts you. So this is up to $200,000 per operation and a match of 50%. So again, 50% of what you're asking for. So if your total project is 300,000, you could ask for 200,000 from the state and put up 100,000 as the match. The last one here is the Regional Impact Grant. This is the largest. It can get up to $2 million, and the grantee, again, needs to have a 50% match for this. The key thing with a Regional Impact Grant, there needs to be a clear demonstration that this investment in this equipment helps a large audience of folks within the Pennsylvania ag system. So, 2 or more other farm operations, if it's the case that it's a processing facility, they need to demonstrate they're going to be able to pull more product from Pennsylvania farms to run them through and to support other ag businesses. So to give you sort of what does the ideal ag innovation project look like? So one, you obviously need to be eligible. You're an ag business, you're a forestry business, ag processor, and then identifying a type of technology or equipment or a service that involves that innovative technology or equipment that can have tangible benefits to your operation. So what we're looking for is under that green box there. After we make this investment and in your grant application, is this going to improve efficiencies? Does it increase safety? Does it allow you to better use your labor pool or remove labor needs that are currently unmet? Is it an advanced energy project and does it improve output? So, as a quick example here, we just using a robotic milker as an example, that's obviously a piece of technology. We help you install that, help the third party get that up and running for you. You're integrating it into your dairy operation. And then the hope is that we see, labor savings, better diagnostics, better data from your herd, and obviously animal health benefits as well. So I talked a little bit about the match and how it's not of the total project cost, it's of what you're asking from the state. So in this example, the project is $300,000 and the grantee is requesting 200,000 for from the state for both the equipment and installation. And as the match, they're providing 100,000 in their own personal funds for the robotic milker. So again, it's a 30% match for the planning grant and a 50% match for the on-site and regional impact. I will note here that the match funds do need to be a cash match, but they can come from anywhere as long as it's not other state dollars. So if you have a federal grant, philanthropic funds, anything like that, that would all be fair game. So I won't go through this too extensively because you can certainly find this and go through it in more fine detail. But generally speaking, when it comes to allowable activities, at the end of the day, this is a grant focused on equipment and services. So this is not a research grant. This is not for personnel. So in this case, the allowable activities are equipment. So it should be some sort of innovative equipment or high efficiency equipment that ideally is new. If it is used, it must have a warranty with the entity that refurbished it. We can't just do any used equipment, unfortunately, and that is coming from above us, so I do apologize that we don't have that flexibility. But just some examples, precision agriculture equipment, robotics, AI, automation, all sorts of different things can fall under equipment. When it comes to supplies, that would be anything that is going to enable you to use that equipment. So, let's say you're getting a robotic milker and you need to upgrade the electrical panel that would serve that robotic milker. We could certainly help with that as well. And that work, all that work, ideally is third party. So that's going to be, the consulting design, any labor with that. And since these are state funds, they are subject to prevailing wage, and there is a link there to learn more about what that means. So some clear unallowable activities, as I mentioned, used equipment is not eligible. We can't support sort of non-specialized vehicles in this case. And just a note here, it says software development. You can buy software, you just can't sort of bespoke, customize, pay computer engineers to create software. This cannot support wages, salary, or any sort of other administrative type things from the grantee. And then also consumables. So let's say you're doing an advanced rotational grazing project, maybe doing some silvopasture. We wouldn't be able to help you pay for the trees, but we might be able to help you with, some advanced fencing system. I've seen, some automated fencing systems or other things like that that can help your operation. So moving ahead, just quickly here, there are some activities we are not funding through this allocation. You can obviously see those here. And again, just the obvious one, but always worth saying is that the project itself needs to be in Pennsylvania. The equipment and the services don't necessarily have to be from a Pennsylvania provider. That's always a plus. But the project itself, the physical location, should be in Pennsylvania. Again, just some other items here for reasons for disqualification. Again, I'll let you read through that. So the scoring system, there are two different types of scoring. One is for the planning and on-site grants, and you can see the questions here. These are all things that you'll answer in the addenda for the most part. And then the regional impact grant does have a different scoring matrix. The only difference is the question there, addenda question 4, again, justifying why this is a regional impact project. Otherwise, everything else is pretty much the same. So looking at the overall timeline here, this did open on February 2nd and closes on April 18th. So you have a little bit of just over a month here to continue to apply. Our hope is to have awardees selected in early May. That is subject to change, but that is my target to have those awardees announced by May 1st. Again, subject to change though, and then hopefully making a public announcement and award announcement in May as well. The one thing I will note that we always encourage folks to wait until they have their fully executed contract before making any purchases. My hope is that those would be signed in June, but again, subject to change just because that is involving other entities outside of myself and my bureau. So I won't go through this in too much detail here, but this uh, document will walk you through step by step through the application process. I'll just hit some highlights here. So the first thing, in order to do business with the Commonwealth, you need to have a Keystone login. So that is just a credential. That's not where you actually apply for the grant. That's just the website that gives you your credentials to work with the state. So you'll get your Keystone login, and then you'll sign into the single application for assistance, which there's a link to that on our Ag Innovation page. You'll put in the same credentials that you got from the Keystone login, and then find your PA Ag Innovation grant, and then you will apply and obviously fill out that information and hit submit. The other step that is optional to do before you submit, but certainly helps with things on the back end of if you are selected, is getting a vendor number. The vendor number doesn't cost you anything, but it can be a longer process as far as getting that actual number, but that will help us on the contracting side if you are selected. Again, not necessary for you to hit the submit button, but just something to be aware of. Again, sorry to jump through all these so quickly here. Each of these will show you exactly what you're putting into the application, and in this case, showing you where you get the numbers that you might need. I'm gonna get us to the addenda section. Yeah, so the addenda is the most important part. This is the portion that's going to be scored most heavily on. Obviously, there could be administrative things that would cause problems in the other sections, but this is where the points actually come to bear. So these are your first two questions that you'll have. So one is about how does this align with the program? The other is what are the metrics that you're going to track to show success of the investment as well as improvement of your operation. Third question here is how does your project align with the principles, which I'd shown you a little bit earlier here. And again, you can always reference this document as you're answering these questions. And then for those that are doing the regional impact, again, justifying why this is a large scale impact or project. One of the most important parts, and one that unfortunately does trip people up a little bit, is the budget section. So what we're looking for here is very big picture, clean budget that is easy for us to identify what you're trying to do and where the money is being sourced from. So again, in this case, we're using the robotic milker as an example. The person's identifying the equipment, they're identifying the labor related to that equipment, and then they're matching the state request at 50%, which is the need for on-site grants, and total project of 300,000. So again, just a quick example there. The new thing this year, the key difference from last year's application, is we do have a timeline in this as well. So the way this works is we'll identify that month one after you've been awarded and week one after you've been awarded that you receive your fully executed contract. Again, this is what kicks off your entire project, sort of being at the starting line, is getting that fully executed contract. From there, it will be your responsibility to outline all the other pieces. So in this case, using the robotic milker as an example, when you think it'll be installed, you'll have your paid receipt and when you expect to submit that to the department. With everything, there is a final report as well. And again, that's something I will send out once you complete your project, but something we can touch on later as well. These are just a few other simple questions that relate to your project. On the addenda portion of the application. So again, you identify the type of application you're applying for. If you're doing a regional impact project, we do expect you to have some letters of support, 3 letters maximum. The on-site and planning grants do not need letters of support. If you feel there's any other information, pictures, or other things that would be relevant to your application, you're welcome to attach those as well in the next question. And then we also will need everyone to fill out a worker protection form, which is a standard form for the Commonwealth. And then again, you're going to select why you feel you're an eligible applicant under one of the 4 options. And that is just your signature page there. And then some walkthroughs on how you get your non-procurement vendor registration and things like that. So, how do you handle reimbursements? So, just to be clear and upfront here, this is a reimbursement grant program. This we do not forward any funding ahead of time. So, just being mindful of that when you're strategically laying out how you're going to spend your funds. So, we will, once you get your fully executed contract, we provide you with a reimbursement template. When you make a payment for something, you can send us that template filled out as well as your paid receipt, and we will reimburse you based on the ratio of your the grant that you selected. So whenever you send us receipts, we're going to reimburse you based on that ratio. It won't be selecting which receipts we reimburse you on and selecting which ones are matched. It all should be eligible. So we'll reimburse based on that ratio. And just a few questions here. What counts as match? All match should be cash funds. Like I said earlier, as long as it's not state funds, that's totally fine. And then what costs can be covered? This is equipment and sort of contracting technical assistance grant. So again, we're not paying for staff time or the farm to do the labor. It does need to be third party. And then we've had questions before about are processors and manufacturers eligible to apply? The answer is yes, as long as they're handling sort of that raw material from the agriculture industry. So we could, help you with processing, in this case, the hardwoods industry, uh, logs and lumber, but we wouldn't be able to fund someone that's making furniture, is sort of how that plays out. So with that, I know that was a quick overview. And again, I encourage you, please reach out if you have any additional questions. But with that, I'll turn it back over to Noah, and I'd be happy to answer questions on the call here today.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks, Mike. That was great. Yeah, thank you for providing good broad overview of the program and allowing for plenty of time for Q&A. We have a few that have already come in. Someone asks if a nonprofit organization is eligible to apply.
Yeah, nonprofits are eligible to apply. The key thing is the sort of connection to the agricultural industry. So, does your nonprofit serve the ag industry? Does it produce an agricultural product or process an agricultural product? That is fair game. Um, so yeah, you would be eligible just depending on how you click into the different categories.
Great. And then Amber asks if there's a timeline to complete the project if you're awarded, like a required
Yeah,
timeline.
so it is a 2-year grant, so we would be looking out to 2028 for your everything to be completed. So you do have a little bit of time for those more challenging construction type projects where you're installing something or waiting for something to be delivered. So yeah, 2 years, and we would just do the final report whenever you complete your project.
Awesome. Moving to the chat. Veggie House Farm asked regarding the match, how far can receipts go back?
Yeah, so we do ask that all receipts take place after the date of your fully executed contract. There are rare occasions where we're able to backdate to the fiscal year, so that would be July, but that's never a guarantee. So I always encourage you save receipts that you think might fall within that period, but I can never promise that that would be able to be reimbursed. But usually the rule of thumb is after your fully executed contract.
Okay, thanks. Yeah, and yeah, Veggie House, if that didn't answer your question fully, feel free to ask another one. Um, then Julie asked, would a walk-in cooler be eligible?
So if it's an off-the-shelf system, I think the short answer is yes. If it's something to be constructed, we could help with uh, sort of the interior, if it's things that make it food safe. We've had people purchase cool bots or the sort of control system for the cooler. It's a little challenging. We can't help you construct a barn, but we can help you do the innovative equipment within that barn. So in the case of the cooler, if it's being, sort of built from pieces, we can help with that interior piece, the keeping it safe, and again, the technology that helps run it.
Well, we'll keep on the cooler thread for now. Matt asks, why would a cooler be innovative? Or like, how could a cooler be innovative?
Yes, we have a lot of operations that unfortunately can't. They're restricted by the sort of the food supply chain. So if the deployment of an advanced cooling system that maybe has some smart features or other abilities to protect and store food longer that enables the farm to sell food over a long period of time, there's certainly innovative ways to deploy temperature control systems. The other thing is advanced HVAC systems. You would say, well, what's that have to do with innovation? We have things like at dairy farms where they're using evaporative cooling as a much more energy efficient and animal sort of best animal health practice that would be innovative for a dairy farm. So, I encourage people to think creatively. There's a lot of things that are used in other industries that would never be seen as innovative, but as we apply them to agriculture, there certainly is innovative opportunities there.
Thanks. Yeah, thanks for that additional explanation, Mike. Yeah, yeah, definitely be creative. Um, going back, I guess circling back to the previous question from Veggie House about receipts and when they can be um, when they go back to. Veggie House just had a clarifying question on what fully executed meant, and it'd be more specific on what that means.
Sure, I apologize using sort of department language there. So the fully executed contract just means that the state has signed the grant agreement and the grantee has signed the grant agreement fully. Um, our process, full transparency is a challenging one just because it does take some time. But what will happen is once we have all your grant information, you're selected, we'll bundle everything together, send it to you for signature. It'll come back to us. It'll get reviewed by five different entities, the secretary, our chief counsel, governor's office. A lot of different folks will touch your process, the contract process there. Once they sign, you will get an email from our administrative team saying that here's your fully executed contract. And shortly after that, I'll follow up with your invoice template that you can use for the whole duration of the grant program.
Gotcha. Yeah, thanks for that additional clarification. Let's see. So Scott asks, does tech made outside of Pennsylvania that improves farmers' water usage, land usage, and other benefits qualify? Yeah.
Yeah, so technology from outside the state and even the country is eligible. One thing I will put as a word of caution there is we had a lot of folks in the first round who got awarded get hit with tariffs, and that was something that was not calculated within uh, their their application, obviously, because they didn't know that was going to happen. So I do encourage folks be mindful of tariffs as well as shipping cost. Don't forget to put that in there. The shipping cost, absolutely, we can help with. The tariff stuff is always sort of up in the air, so we won't know. But I encourage you to try and build in just some redundancy there, just in case you get hit with something like that. But yeah, we had a lot of folks in the first round get stuff from the Netherlands, Denmark, Germany, a lot of countries that have really advanced ag innovative equipment. So yeah, encouraged but not mandatory by any means.
How many for last year's awards? How many total projects do you know off the top of the head that you ended up awarding?
Yeah, so we received 160 applications and we awarded 88. So just over half of all folks got something. Now, they didn't get their full grant awards. It was cut back a little bit. The reason being we received we received 68 million in requests and we had 10 million available, so we did have to cut
Mm,
back quite a bit. But we do try and fund as many folks as we can through the program.
gotcha. And for this round, is it also $10 million available?
It is $10 million again this round. Fingers crossed the next round is tentatively in the governor's budget, 19 million. So we hope to have this grow because it was outstripped very quickly. But I don't want that to discourage people. Again, we'll try and fund as many folks as we can.
Great. Um, let's see, another question about can funds be used to construct a small space for the expansion of innovative processes? Sort of a vague question, but yeah.
Yeah, I'll try and take a stab at that. So it is a little bit challenging. We can't help with necessarily your standard construction or housing of things. Where we can help is if it's specifically dedicated to, in the case of, controlled environment agriculture, if you're doing a greenhouse or some sort of facility that's actually growing the food and it needs to be temperature controlled and things like that, we can help there. Where we can't help is if it's just, office space, a barn, sort of these more general utility type buildings. But like I was saying before, we can help with the equipment inside. So if you already have a building and you want to deploy some new advanced processing system, we can help you with that piece. We wouldn't be able to help you with sort of the expansion of a building.
Thanks. That's helpful. Let's see, Sabine asked, saw that Indiana County Conservation District received a planning grant from last round to develop local food systems. And the question, can a planning grant be used to fund staff time to develop HACCP template procedures and systems for a new USDA kitchen that's utilizing innovative equipment?
So the grantee themselves, if they were the facility that would be housing that, hired a third party to help sort of plan that out and do those services, that third party company could be paid through the grant. They can't pay themselves for, strategic planning or coming up with plans, but a third party that's assisting them can receive funds, or I should say, can be paid by the grantee through these
Okay.
funds.
Yeah, that's helpful. Lindsay asks, would an electric tractor or a geothermal high tunnel be eligible, i.e., improving existing systems by transitioning to more renewable energy sources?
Yeah, so that's one where I think we have to sort of thread the needle there. So certainly it's absolutely innovative. We had a similar question. New Holland came out with their biogas tractor, and where we came down, since we are limited, we can't fund just a generic tractor. Whatever the cost difference between the same model tractor going to geother or going to biogas, we could cover that difference, but we couldn't pay for the tractor itself. So I would say if there's an electric tractor and there's a comparable that is from the same company, we could help with maybe the additional cost to get it there. We just have to be careful. It can't be sort of just a generic piece of farm equipment. Um, it's just a stipulation that we have. I shouldn't say farm equipment, but vehicle is where we
Mhm.
get into sticky situations. As far as the geothermal, 100% biomass to energy systems, geothermal digesters, all that is fair game under this allocation. So yeah, that always excited to see those pop up.
And to clarify, if the high tunnel is already built, just adding that geothermal piece, that's allowed.
Yeah, 100%.
Cool.
If you have an operation and you're switching to, bio-based energy or more efficient energy like geothermal, that reduces your carbon footprint. There is forgive me, I can't remember the number, but there is one of our priority areas that talks about that. So that is fair game. Yep.
Terrific. Um, let's see. Pocono Organics asks, does improving efficiencies in multiple different aspects of the business qualify, i.e., compost and a specific crop development slash improving efficiencies and harvest?
Yeah, so you're not limited to a single, advancement. Again, just to use the dairy example because it's easy. If you said we're getting high efficiency fans for, cooling, you're not stuck to that. You could package a bunch of stuff together. Obviously, your only limitation is that cap on the dollar amount. But if you have 7 different improvements you think you could make on the farm that you can argue are all innovative, that's absolutely fine.
WCCD asks if someone were to ask for funding for an innovative manure storage facility, would this structure be subject to NRCS technical standards? And then maybe more broadly, Mike, if other projects are implementing a certain conservation practice, does it need to follow NRCS technical standards as well?
Yeah, anything that requires permits or approvals in its normal, pathway would need that here as well. The only difference for us is the funding that can kick in once you have that. So yeah, in the case of manure storage, make sure you're doing everything you need to do with your conservation district, NRCS, to get that, sort of lined up, eligible and approved. And then we'll be there in the back end with your when you have your receipts. So really, you should have already gone through that process by the time you have your paid receipts. But same thing goes for the energy systems and everything else. If there's any sort of permits that you need, that is your responsibility. We're just here to help with the cost impact.
Okay. A sort of clarifying question of that. So if someone, do they don't need to necessarily like start that project before applying for the grant. It's just that they need to have all those permits and everything in place when they're asking for reimbursement 6 months from now, a year from now.
Correct. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So yeah, you don't have to have anything on the ground just yet, but the expectation would be when you are ready to seek reimbursement. Obviously, you've already paid for services, so the expectation is you need to have all your permits and approvals completed before you start construction. So by the time you hit us, should be okay.
Yeah, another question just to clarify about the active grant period. It's that 2 years, like you said.
Yeah, so your grant, and it sometimes it's not a full 2 years, depending on when the contract date is. But it's from the time you get your fully executed contract until the end date, which I don't want to give you necessarily the wrong date at this moment. I have to wait for our legal team to give me the official dates, but we would probably be looking at June of 28 would be the end of the fiscal year for the state. So we'd probably be looking at the end of June 2028. And by that time, I'll have been communicating with you about your final report before June for sure. So you have sort of roughly from now until then. But again, need to wait for that fully executed contract.
And Sabine asks, which of the three grant categories is expected to be most competitive? Or maybe from last year's grants, if you're able to share which category was most competitive, the planning, on-site, or regional.
Yeah, from last year, we didn't receive a whole lot of planning grants, so I don't think that one was super competitive. I would On-site was the most requested, but I would say the most competitive as far as scoring and everything is the regional impact. It's quite a bit of money being asked from the state, so we do have a high bar for that one. Especially that additional question to justify that this is going to have a true regional impact, whether that's geographically regional or regional as far as a commodity goes. So if you are going to pursue regional impact, just make sure you're able to tell that story, clearly and effectively to justify that large investment is going to have, pretty good impact on the ground.
Great. Haley asks, can you expand on what type of contract work is allowable? If we hire a contractor to manage customer service of the farms, is that allowable?
The sort of ongoing things probably are not the best things to apply for. I think we're looking for short duration specific things that are going to have a long-term impact. So if it was a customer service software that you wanted to acquire, that would be good. Paying someone sort of long term for that service to physically have them do it is probably a little bit out of scope. But yeah, again, software or if there's other technologies that help you with your customer service, that would be fair game.
And Sherry asks, my farm is in a trust. Would it be eligible, or would I need to wait until I'm listed as the owner to apply?
I think ideally the owner of the farm would be the primary applicant, or at least if you had a letter of, some letter from the owner to say that they're okay with this taking place, that would be fine. But yeah, as long as the owner, we have some sort of proof that the owner is either the applicant or in approval of the action, we can work with that.
We're waiting for, yeah, just give folks a few more minutes to ask some questions. There was a question about, a list of folks who had been awarded in the past. And I think we shared the
Mhm.
link to the press release from last year, but was curious if you, just off the top of your head, had a couple projects that you remember from last year that really stood out as, checking all the boxes that had a good application, that what sort of maybe, yeah, distance themselves from the competition.
Yeah, I'll just share some of the sort of highlighted ones. One of the on-site grants, or I'm sorry, regional impact grants, two that I'll just share quickly. One was Metzler's Forest Products. They used it to buy a biochar sort of piece of equipment. They had one previously, but they got an even larger one through the grant program. For those that don't know, biochar is just heating things up without oxygen so that they become sort of a pure carbon. So they're able to take a lot of the waste wood material that would otherwise just sort of eventually degrade and go into the atmosphere and turn it into carbon that can be used for agricultural purposes and a multitude of other purposes. So the justification there was that they're taking wood products from all different loggers that are bringing it to them. And by having this biochar system, they can reduce their waste, increase the amount of wood that they bring into the system. Another one that was interesting was one of the foreign pieces of equipment. Rice Fruit Company is a sort of I'm forgetting the proper term, but basically buys fruit from the Adams County region and then sells it to larger retailers like Walmart and many others. They got an robotic bin tipper. So one of the processes within the apple industry is you have to wash and clean the apples before they're sold. And they had, I think it was like three staff that they were trying to patch together to use forklifts to dump the apple bins that they had into their wash system. The new system they were able to procure in assistance from the grant program. One person, they only do one person in a forklift to just stack everything together. And then the robot system will actually grab the bins, tip them, and then safely put them to the side and they can let that run without, personnel for a while. And, most folks are like, well, what happened to those jobs? They were actually moved to higher paying and more in demand jobs that they just couldn't fill. So we have this case many times in these grants where people are like, I just need bodies. And if I can reduce the bodies I need on this system, it helps me with my other operations. So two there. On the on-site grants, just quickly, we had a number of folks that said we've always wanted to get a robotic milking system, have never had the funds ready to do that. So that we had a few folks do that. And again, that's another case of reduces labor, automates the system, and the one of the unspoken sort of benefits of the robotics AI and even some of the other technologies is just the quality of life of the farmer. This is
Mm.
not an easy lifestyle, and I think it's not valued enough, and it's not something that's easy to show on a spreadsheet. But being able to spend more time with your family and have things at your fingertips to say, "Oh, I need to do X, Y, or Z," certainly a benefit we've seen with a number of different awardees.
Gotcha. Thanks. Yeah, thanks for those overviews. That's helpful just to give a couple stories for folks to think about. And when, and just off the top of your head, Mike, if you recall,
Mhm.
of folks who got awarded, as folks are thinking about finding those other matching funds, did a
Mhm.
lot of folks seem to have those matching funds from federal sources, or was it out of their own pocket or philanthropic, just as folks think about their application?
Yeah, I'd say the majority of what I'd say is your sort of typical farms in the center of Pennsylvania were sort of self-match funded. If it was a larger processor or company, some of them went and got, lines of credit through their own channels they already had. But we did have a handful of folks that, particularly some urban ag projects, received some philanthropic funds to help support their efforts, as well as obviously timing is always the biggest challenge. But a lot of the hardwoods awardees did receive the Wood Innovation Grant from USDA. So I do encourage you, if even if you don't think there might be something out there, uh, there could be a USDA program or a philanthropic program that might be able to match up to this. And they always like to see that you have another source of funding to support you. So if Ag Innovation Fund can be helpful in soliciting those opportunities, feel free to do that. Um, I'm trying to think if there's any others out there. I mean, some of the common ones, unfortunately, I don't think the program's still working, but the USDA REAP program for energy efficiency, renewable energies used to be
Mhm.
one that would always be utilized. There's also the value added producer grant if you're a processor. That has been one we've seen before. But yeah, I'd say most folks are matching with their own business funds.
Okay, thanks for that.
Yep.
Yeah, Haley asked another question. As a first-time grant applicant, is there a resource that you can recommend to ensure we are complying with the requirements?
Yeah, so the number one thing I would say on the landing page, we have that resource guide, which I had up. So that'll walk you through the grant A to Z, pretty much. And then I also have a video posted there that does walkthrough of the application itself. So if you want to have that as sort of your, application buddy. But one thing I will offer, I'm not allowed to score the grants because I'm the point of contact for this opportunity. So, once you get through the basics, obviously the first level is always check the resource guide and other resources. But if you feel there's something that's not in there, or you have a specific question about the equipment you're going to purchase or something like that, you're always welcome to reach out to me. But the resource guide, I would say, is your number one friend through this process.
And just, yeah, pointing out the evaluation link that we put into the chat to make sure that take a second now or after the webinar to provide your feedback for it. Let me just put it in the chat again. Thanks, Ben. Um, that's all the questions for now. Oh, there's a clarifying question about yeah, it looks like Mike, the webinar you're referencing is from about a year ago.
Yeah.
Is that right?
Yeah, so it should be listed right under the resource guide. And
Okay.
yeah,
Okay.
I
Thanks.
think the only thing to bear in mind, the recorded sort of walkthrough won't have the timeline portion of the addenda, but that is in the resource guide. So that is something we'll need to update. Unfortunately, we didn't have the capacity to this time.
Okay. Yeah, we'll give a few more moments for additional questions, but yeah, really appreciate the wide, expansive questions about specifics in general. And yeah, Mike, very, very informative answers, and I think answered a lot of questions folks had about the direction that their project's going, but also as they just think about figuring out, filling out their application.
Yeah, and I'll just say as folks maybe think of their final questions, if I can ever be helpful, if you're saying, here's this commodity I have, what is innovation? What could that even be with my commodity? Because of this grant and other opportunities, I've been able to meet with different companies, from overseas, from the US. So if you're ever, shot in the dark, hey, I do floriculture, who should I, what could be opportunities I talk to? I can't necessarily recommend companies, that's not my role, but I can sort of give you a sense of different technologies that are out there that might be helpful.
Very helpful. Yeah, I guess Mike, yeah, sorry, any other, I guess, closing comments? Looking like there's no other. Oh, there's another one from Lindsay. Are you seeking, is PDA like seeking grant scores in the same way that SARE recruits farmers to score grants?
Yeah, so because of some rules we have, all the scores have to come from the Commonwealth, so it'll be an internal scoring team that we identify. But I certainly appreciate that, Lindsay. I wasn't aware Sarah did that. That's really cool.
Yeah, so now, Mike, any other closing comments or thoughts to leave folks with?
Yeah, I would just say I'm here to be a resource for you. Please feel free to reach out. I think on the last slide I said there, if you are gonna call, I usually appreciate a text because I'm in meetings and things, so easier to help schedule that ahead of time or shoot me an email. But yeah, I'm a resource for you here through this process. If I can help connect you to other folks, happy to do it. And then just a sort of selfish plug, this summer at Ag Progress Days, we are going to have a robotics village. So if anyone wants to see this stuff in person and see how it operates, I welcome you to come check that out. That's August, and happy to walk you through that. But other than that, thank you to the PASA team for allowing me to do this, and again, like I said, here to be a resource.
Thanks, Mike. Another question did slip in. We didn't have enough time for it. Haley asked, we're considering including a third-party evaluation of our impact. Any recommendations for companies to work with, or if not specific companies, ways to search for them, or how to sort of seek out that sort of expertise?
Yeah, so yeah, I can't, as you mentioned, I can't pick out specific companies, but obviously, I would look at some of the Commonwealth-wide resources, like obviously PASA, I'm sure could be helpful in some of those respects, but also Penn State Extension. If you can find an extension expert specific to your commodity, I'm sure they would be able to help you in some way, shape, or form. Again, I don't know, will they cost money or things like that, but that would be sort of my first go-tos if I was doing that.
Thanks.
Yeah, sorry that
Um,
wasn't super helpful.
no, I know you can't give specific recommendations. No, I definitely appreciate that. Yeah, and as Lindsay said, yeah, we'll be sending out the recording yeah, in a few weeks once our tech team sort of processes it. But yeah, just want to thank everyone for your really engaging questions. Yeah, I'm glad. Hopefully, this was a resource as you think about your application or talk to your friends or neighbors who are interested. Yeah, feel free to, as Mike said, be creative. Um, Talk to Mike with your ideas. There's still, I think, about a month before, yeah, applications are due, so enough time to get it together. Um, and the more we're able to apply and show that there's interest in these projects, that helps the policy team at PASA, help advocate for more funding for these programs. If we know they're being over tapped and over asked, then that's a good sign that they need more funding. So yeah, thank you for your participation today. Once again, we'll plug the evaluation link. Please do let us know what you think. And we'll see you next time on the next PASA webinar. Have a good one.
Thanks, everyone.